Good evening and welcome to the Town Council regular meeting, February 16th, 2023, 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call to order, please. Roll call.
Buckholz present.
Holloway present.
Bennett present.
Buda present.
Grossman present.
Let it be known we've established a quorum. If we could all rise for a moment of silence and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so tonight I do not believe we have any visitors, presentations, or recognitions. Do we have anybody that would like to make comments this evening?
We don't have anybody signed up.
Oh, did you want to sign up?
Do I need to sign up?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Can I sign up now?
Yes.
Just so we have a record of your name. Sure. Thank you. Okay. Is it Susan, what is your last name again? Hudson. Hudson. H-U-D-S-O-N. Okay. As in the river. Okay. You want to come up to the podium?
Come on up, Susan.
Okay. You all do this much differently than my former township.
Oh, yeah?
So.
Oh,
this is
to,
right
yeah,
here.
right at the microphone.
Podium.
This way.
Okay.
The folks who are on Facebook can hear you.
Oh, boy. I understand you're taking a vote tonight on the referendum in regards to short-term rentals. Is that true? Yes, no, maybe? Okay. I'm on the committee at Bay Creek. We have formed a chartered committee to work on short-term rentals in Bay Creek because we definitely have some of the same issues that you have in Cape Charles. And we think it would be a good idea if we could have some kind of representation, if a member of our committee could meet with you whenever you are choosing to meet. I don't know if your planning commission is going to be in charge of looking at short-term rentals for Cape Charles, or if you're going to form a committee, whatever. We'd like to be able to have some conversation. Whether or not we end up with the same things, that's up to the voters, actually. But we think it's a good idea. I mean, we are a part of Cape Charles, and we definitely have some of the same issues that you do. For example, parking, an overload on the system, the water and septic systems. We have issues of noise levels, too many people in one house, things such as that. And of course, the concern is the people who are residents there, people who are there full time. They bought into to Bay Creek so that they would have a residential community. And I think the fear for Cape Charles, as well as for Bay Creek, is that what we've seen happen, for example, on Nantucket, which we used to be a partner of for many years. And that is that corporations would come in and buy off property. They would develop a house and use it for just short-term rentals. And there would be no resident, no ownership on Nantucket. And they would rent it out for the whole year. And I'm not sure that's what you want for your community, and it's certainly not what Bay Creek wants. And we've already seen some evidence of that. And so that's one of our concerns. So we'd sort of like to know what you're thinking about doing, and if you even want us to feed you some information about what we're coming up with, but that's why I'm here tonight.
Susan, could I get your contact information, and I will be in touch with you?
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Let me just, do I send that to you?
You can, or if you want to write it right in here, you can do that as well.
And we have 2 letters?
Yes. Okay, I received 2 emails. The first one is from Julie Jones, 538 Monroe Avenue. Let's see, get to the top of this. She says, to Mayor Charney, Councilwoman Holloway, Councilman Buda, Councilman Fulmer, Councilman Grossman, Councilman Buckholz, Vice Mayor Bennett, and Town Manager Hosey. My husband and I purchased our home at 538 Monroe Avenue in 2015. At that time, there was only one long-term rental in our block, which includes 12 homes on the south side. The quiet residential nature of our block was so appealing that even though we had never owned a historic home before or lived in a town, we were smitten. In addition to the beautiful homes, we are blessed to have neighbors, both full-time and part-time, who know each other and look out for each other. Many people called this Mayberry, quiet, beautiful, safe. Then about 4 years ago, some folks from Northern Virginia purchased one of the homes in our block. They invested about a year in sweat equity to return the home to its original beauty. Then they listed it on VRBO for $4,000 per week. The first summer was not bad. Most of their guests were extended family units who were quiet, respectful, and appreciative of our little paradise. I guess $4,000 is not a lot to pay for a week of paradise. But last summer, things were different. I caught a child, unsupervised, running his bike through my neighbor's flower garden. Another group had 5 elementary school-age kids who were recklessly riding their bikes, jumping the curb into the street without looking for traffic, up and down the boardwalk, also unsupervised. In September, a group of 9 women rented the house for about 4 days. Nearly all 9 women drove separately and took up all the street parking for 6 lots in addition to 3 golf carts. So much for peace and quiet. Now the house next door has been sold, also to someone from Northern Virginia, and just hit VRBO before Christmas, and it appears it is already rented for the whole summer. Currently in the 500 block of Monroe Avenue, there is a total of 29 homes, counting the 4 duplexes as 2 homes each. 10 homes are definitely short-term rentals. Another one sold last fall, and it's rumored that the new owner intends to make it a short-term rental. So we're looking at a third of the homes on our block being short-term rentals. There used to be young families living in those duplexes. There were state troopers living in those duplexes. There were Hispanic workers living in those duplexes. Aren't these the very people who now need affordable workforce housing? That's how it was when we bought our home in 2015, diverse, but all of those duplexes are now short-term rentals. And with the exception of only 1 or 2 weeks, those short-term rentals have been sitting empty since Labor Day. The vision statement of the town of Cape Charles states, "Preserve our historical, natural, and cultural resources while fostering a sense of community that enhances well-being and prosperity now and for generations to come." How are you fostering a sense of community when 1/3 of the homes in 1 block of Monroe Avenue are short-term rentals? The people who live in the 500 block of Monroe know each other's names, the names of our kids and grandkids, the names of our dogs and cats. If we notice something doesn't look right at a neighbor's home, we pick up the phone and call or knock on their door because that's what a sense of community means. It is not cheap to maintain an old house. We and our neighbors take great pride in keeping our historic homes repaired and painted and our yards beautified with gardens and trees. Because Cape Charles is a town, we pay taxes to both the town and Northampton County. This past year, the tax assessment for our home from Northampton County increased 72%. We paid dearly for this sweet little piece of paradise where we enjoy hosting family and friends and little grandchildren, but it is worth it to us. What we do not appreciate is people who do not live here, are not part of our community, but who are making a huge profit selling the beauty, peace, quiet, and safety which we cherish and for which we pay dearly. The only people who benefit from short-term rentals are people interested in getting rich at the expense of small communities like ours. I do not know how you fix this problem. At the very least, while you are figuring this out, please put a moratorium on any additional short-term rentals. Ultimately, you need to determine how many short-term rentals are acceptable without further impacting the quality of life for those of us who call this little town home. It can be done. It has been done in other places. Please do this sooner rather than later before we lose the sense of community. Thank you for your service to Cape Charles and its people. And then later that afternoon, she sent an updated email saying, I just heard that our neighbor George, who has been renting his cottage at 520 Monroe Avenue for 32 years, has been given until April 1 to move out because the owner plans to sell it. George is in his 60s. He works on and off with Waterman and Oyster, I think. He also cuts the grass of many of our neighbors, plus he also cuts and edges grass along the sidewalk in our block, in our alley. He maintains the yard of his home. He painted the cute old barn red. He watches out for everyone's home. Where is George going to live? Are you really okay with this? Someone who has been a contributing member of this town for 32 years now has to find another place to live so we can add another short-term rental to our already overcrowded block. Seriously, are you okay with this? Okay. This next one is from Sam Jones, also from 538 Monroe Avenue. It says, Mr. Mayor, Town Council, and Town Manager, my name is Sam Jones, and my wife and I live at 538 Monroe Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for your service to the community. First, I fully support the town's resolution opposing the Senate bill and similar legislation that removes the authority of the town to govern short-term rentals. The variety of Virginia cities, counties, and towns preclude the one-size-fits-all model proposed in this legislation. Second, I support the town council and town manager giving a high priority to development of town-specific rules and regulations regarding short-term rentals. As you do so, please consider the balance between the number of full-time residential, non-rental properties and the number of short-term rentals allowed. Specifically, consider placing a moratorium on issuing any new short-term rental licenses until your work is complete. One of your primary goals is to maintain the quality and character of Cape Charles. Limiting the number of short-term rentals will ensure that you have full-time citizens to serve on your boards and commissions and maintain the volunteer base needed for the many events that contribute to the character of our town. While issues of trash, parking, and noise are important, an appropriate balance between full-time residents and short-term rentals is the overarching issue. Finally, I just learned of a Cape Charles citizen who, after renting a house for over 30 years, must vacate the house this spring so it can be renovated and likely turned into a short-term rental. It is a shame, since this is just the type of worker the town hopes to support with its workforce housing initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Number 5, if I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's written, approval of the agenda format, approval of the minutes, and approval of December 31st, 2022 financial reports.
So moved.
All in-
Before you vote, I'd like to
Yes.
amend it. I'd like to pull out January, January 19th meeting minutes, and hold a separate discussion on an item there.
Okay.
So that's an amended motion.
Okay. Do I get, all in favor
Of the amendment.
of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so in it, it has to do with the library material reconsideration procedure. The words in the meeting minutes talked about we approving the reconsideration procedure as written. And I believe it should be the policy. The procedure was set aside. Councilman Bennett, you had talked about the need for it or not requiring it. And we agreed we didn't need the procedure for Cape Charles to be different from anybody else. But at the request of the town manager, we did adopt the policy. And that was the motion. And I had looked back at the video just to make sure that that was the case. And I don't know, Libby, you had also looked at that?
I have. So
Go ahead.
Councilman Grossman notified me about this, so Libby and I did review the video just before the meeting. I guess I would respectfully disagree with your call on that. there were two documents that were provided to the council. One was a development collection policy, and the other one was a reconsideration procedure. We got very loose during the meeting between the words policy and
Yes.
procedure.
Yes.
However, the development policy was never discussed at the meeting. The entire meeting was a discussion of the reconsideration procedure / policy, whatever you want to call it. The board presented, and then what I request, what's in the staff report. The staff report requests approval of the reconsideration procedure, because that has political implications. The development policy, there's not controversial about that. I didn't need council or want council to approve that. What I wanted was the political cover behind the reconsideration procedure. The whole, I had requested, or I had made a suggestion to make a change to the board policy, meaning how many people does it take to challenge a book. The board policy said one person. I suggested it should be more. There was a debate among council about that. Council disagreed with that suggestion and said that they wanted to just accept it as written. So there was a motion made to accept the policy as written. And that's what policy, but the only thing being discussed was the reconsideration procedure. So the minutes reflect what was in the staff report, which was the reconsideration procedure, although the motion that was made did say policy, but it just said policy. It didn't say which policy. But I think any reasonable person who watches the video can see that the only discussion that occurred was a discussion surrounding the board's reconsideration policy. And so that's what we were discussing. That was the amendment that we discussed and you decided you didn't want to do. And when you decided you didn't want to do that, you said, well, let's just accept it as written. So I think the minutes are correct, that the intent of the discussion and the intent of the motion was to approve the reconsideration procedure. And that's what you did. That was what the
All right,
discussion was all about.
those weren't the words that came out of my mouth, okay? Policy came out. The two documents that were in, regardless of whether we discussed policy or not, we had a procedure and we had a policy. And when I had made the motion, it was regarding the policy, whether it was discussed or not. That's what I had envisioned when I made that statement. I didn't say procedure.
So you're saying we never really voted, you put the policy out, so we've never voted on the procedure?
Yeah, we had discussion saying that we didn't feel the procedure was needed because of us setting ourselves apart from the balance of the Eastern Shore Library system.
Yeah, the policy was already in place. The policy was what wasn't needed. The collection policy was already in place, and that was never in question. I provided that just as reference because the reconsideration referred to it. So I guess there's something of a quandary here. Councilman Grossman is correct. He did use the word policy, but he didn't define which policy, and all the discussion and all the debate was on reconsideration. So I guess what was the intent of the councils when you voted? Were you voting for the reconsideration policy or the collection policy? Because it wasn't specified in the motion.
Well, be careful with the language. Again, in the document that we were given in the agenda, we had a procedure and we had a policy. So I agree the vast majority of the conversation, or maybe all, was on the procedure, and we came to the conclusion, I did, that we didn't want it. And that's why we had put it aside and said, okay, you want the policy, we'll adopt the policy formally for the council, for the town, and go on with it. So that was where I was coming from. Whether others understood that, I don't.
In my mind, I was voting on the procedure.
That was my understanding as well. That was we were using the word policy and procedure intermittently throughout the discussion. It wasn't just in the motion. Throughout the discussion, we were interchanging those two words. So since the entire discussion was on reconsideration, and that's what you said you wanted to adopt as written, because there was no question, there was no change to the other policy. It just seemed very clear to me that the council's intent behind that motion, at least for everyone except the motion maker, was that you were voting on the reconsideration policy. Did anybody think differently?
I thought procedure.
Is it reconsideration procedure?
That's what the document was called, was
Right.
reconsideration
That's right.
procedure. The motion said policy.
So once we adopt the procedure, we start ourselves up separate from the balance of the Eastern Shore Library system, the way I see it.
No, that's not correct.
No,
No. Had you accepted my recommendation, it would have been different.
correct.
But by rejecting my recommendation, it is now consistent with the rest of the Eastern Shore, and that was the intent.
Okay, and that's ultimately what I was
Yeah,
pushing
Correct.
for.
that's
Okay.
what we were voting for.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, we
So-
stayed
exactly. You
consistent
were
up and
voting
down the
for,
shore.
you were voting for the consistency, so it stayed the same.
There you go.
But
All
we
right.
were, but all that discussion was with the reconsideration procedure / policy, you know, so.
Do we
so-
need to make
so-
a motion on the procedure and
I
just to
I think,
clear it up?
tonight's minutes should clear this up, when Libby does that.
We'll see.
So, I don't think we need to do anything else. The intent of council, at least of the council members who are present, is
Yeah,
clear.
if the meeting minutes we agree to stand,
Yeah.
then we're fine.
Right, so you can go ahead and approve the minutes as written. And we will try to clarify this in the minutes for this meeting.
All right, so we have a second to approve the agenda as is. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Unfinished business, we have none. New business A, short-term rental resolution. Mr. Hosey.
So, Mr. Mayor, as you know, this was scheduled for February 9th, and we did not have a quorum in order to conduct that business. At the time I offered this for your consideration, this legislation was still active. It is no longer active. It has been tabled to a committee for the balance of this legislative session. However, those committees could report back, and it could come back in another form next year. So it is my suggestion that you go ahead and approve this resolution as a statement of supporting local control. However, I will say that at the time this happened, things happened very quickly, especially in a short legislative year. Too fast, really, for local bodies to react. And so when I first drafted this resolution, it was intentionally written to be aggressive, okay? Because that's how you get attention. Otherwise, if it was just a plain vanilla, it'll just go, no one will even read it, it'll just say Cape Charles opposed. It will just go in the opposed column. If you want to actually get their attention, you use a few more aggressive words. I don't know that those aggressive words are necessary now. Okay, it's passed. I mean, I think we can go on record. Vice Mayor Bennett had suggested to me anyway, removing a couple of those charged emotional words. I would support that if Vice Mayor Bennett wanted to make that motion. I think it still accomplishes the same goal now. Either way, I just would like to go on record as supporting local choice. Do you have those in front of you? I have it here if you want.
I don't have the ones I struck because I didn't know you were going to accept the strike. All right, so are you going to read the resolution before?
Well, if you want
Or
to,
make-
if you want to amend it, you should make the motion to
Okay.
amend first, and then
I'd
he
like
reads
to
it.
make a motion that we amend Resolution 20230216.
Can I get a motion to amend?
Well, you have to tell them what the amendments are.
Oh,
Yep. So the changes are in paragraph 2, whereas short-term rentals, while being an important part of the Cape Charles economy, continue to grow in number, impacting traditional lifestyles, and are creating a significant lack. I'm striking the word significant. In paragraph 3, near the end, any short-term rental property managed by a Virginia Realtor while providing unethical, targeted economic advantages, I'm striking unethical and targeted. And 6, paragraph 6, whereas a statewide one-size-fits-all solution such as a uniquely local issue is not only a severe disservice to all constituents, I'm striking the word severe. So I make a motion that we strike those 4 words or 5 words that I just mentioned.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Oh, sorry.
Ask a question.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, before you,
Sorry,
before
before
you, yeah,
you
there should be a
vote.
discussion
You
before you.
gotta-
Sorry about that.
I was like,
I apologize.
You did.
I'm not used to the
no, I don't. So my only question is the second one, and are creating a significant lack of much needed affordable. I do think.
What paragraph is that? I'm sorry.
Oh, second,
Okay.
the second paragraph. I actually do think it's creating a significant lack of much needed affordable long-term rental units and workforce housing. I agree with all of the others, but I do think it's creating that.
That's, a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is, to me, it's an opinion,
Yeah.
I mean, we're recognizing there's a lack of short-term housing. Whether it's,
There's a
what
number of
defines
factors,
significant,
right.
I don't know how you
Right.
define that. 100 units, 10 units? All those units that are being rented short-term? Anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Any other discussion?
Again, just to the point of the point of the resolution has shifted slightly. We're not trying to get the attention of a particular legislator. We're going on record as supporting local control. Should this legislation come back in another form, I will bring this back to you again in another form, and I will make it
If
as emotional
necessary.
as it needs to be at the time. So see, I don't have a problem with those edits, but it's your call.
so we're voting first to change the resolution.
First, you're voting to change, you're voting on the amendment first, then you'll go back and vote for the whole registry.
Right, but on the amendment,
Oh,
with all stricken.
Unless Councilwoman Holloway wants to make an amendment to the amendment to add that one back in, she can do that.
If we have,
thank you.
if we have the ability to add those stronger words back in when needed, I'm okay with that.
Yes.
All right. So we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Now we vote on the main motion.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Okay, back to the main motion. We have a second. All right. Well, no, I have to read this first, so. I move for the adoption of Resolution 2023-0216, opposing potential legislation to restrict a locality's ability to manage short-term rentals as noticed and forego reading of the resolution.
Oh, okay.
It's foregone.
All right.
So, you want a
I'm
motion
sorry.
for that? And I make that motion.
I'll second.
It's already been motioned and second. Is there any discussion?
No more discussion.
I have
more
one thing
discussion.
I'd like to say,
Okay.
just to add to the confusion. Thank you, John, for accepting those suggestions of mine. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just say a comment. Once this is approved, I'd ask that we send it to VML because they are hosting the follow-up and they'll be participating in the House committee. So if we can get ours and the counties and any others, we'll forward it to VML for
It-
their information.
It was my intention to also send it to our existing representatives,
Yes.
too.
All right. Roll call vote. Bennett.
Yes.
Buckholz.
Yes.
Buddha.
Yes.
Olmer. Oh, sorry, he's not here. Grossman.
Yes.
And Holloway.
Yes.
All right.
We're learning alphabetical order. We're a little slow on that one.
All right.
Before we move on, if I could just bring up something related to this. We may want to give our town manager the authority when VML sees something that erodes local control. And there's a ton of things in there now, whether it's cutting down trees or losing local control over landfills and hazardous waste, that if VML is opposed to it, and there isn't sufficient time for the manager to bring it to a meeting, that we give him the authority to do a letter on our behalf and share it as quickly as possible. But I think that some things being very time sensitive, we may want to be able to get ahead of the curve on that.
We've done that in the past.
I was going to actually bring that forward as an item, because that's something I would prefer you vote on, you know, that you give me that authority. I decided not to, just because the session's basically over now. So I was going to make it more timely at the beginning of next session. I was going to come forward and make it an item that says, very similar to what Councilman Buda said, that under certain conditions, you know, if it supports local control or if it's against local control, and if BML concurs, that if it meets those conditions, that you would authorize me to oppose or support that legislation. Of course, you would be CC'd on that, and you would be notified, you know, as soon as it happened. But so yes, I would recommend doing that, but I would suggest we do it at the beginning of next session next year.
All right, item B, Virginia Port Authority aid to local ports grant request.
So this is something that should not be strange to some of you who have been here before. This is an opportunity for us to get one of our highest priorities in the harbor engineering study done and get some funding for it. It can go as much as 75%. We're not counting on getting quite that much, but for the to do the inner harbor whalers and that are listed in the study, we would like to go ahead and put that in for potential funding. We could do it in two phases, one at $211,000, another at $116,000. We do get a $23,000 cost savings if we can try to combine them, which would be a $304,000 project. So if we go forward with this, then we would have to go ahead and plan our match in the upcoming budget, which I was going to try to get to these anyway. It's very high on our priority list. It's in our camp. So my suggestion is that we go ahead and approve this for, you know, as much as we can get, and we'll budget as appropriate in the next budget for this. But one thing I did want to make you aware of, because this is a significant expense that's going to hit the next fiscal year budget. In this fiscal year budget, we also have another significant expense that I still need to bring to you, and that is the repair of the inshore breakwater. I reported to you before the Christmas storms did some additional significant damage there. We think that although the last time we had this repaired, remember last year that we got struck by something and there was damage. We did have it inspected with divers. They didn't see any damage, but based on the type of damage that occurred over the Christmas storm, it appears likely that those piles could be broken below the mud line, and that's what's creating the movement that's backing up and creating the problem with the bolts. So we're in the process now of engineering a more beefy fix to that. I don't have a cost estimate on it yet. We're getting very close, but it's going to be pricey. It's probably going to be $100,000 to $120,000, somewhere in there. But it essentially puts additional dolphins on either side of that to protect it. I mean, it's a good, sturdy, long-term fix. So before I just want you to be informed that the amount of money that's going to the harbor. So I'm going to ask for money this year, and then I'm asking for this money in next year's budget. But I would recommend that you authorize the mayor to approve this application.
Do you know when you'd know from them what portion of the grant we would get, if any?
In May.
In May?
So-
we'd have the opportunity to change numbers for our budget's purpose?
I've not actually lived through this process myself, but my understanding is that there should be. We should be if we don't approve the budget until June.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can always do an amendment to the budget too. You know, after we approve it, if we need to, we can always go back in and amend the budget.
If it comes in after June.
So one of the things I noticed in here was that the cause of the damage, we seem to have an idea about that. Is there anything that we can do to prevent this from continuing?
Which one are you talking about?
Well, where it says, the king piles and the lower horizontal whales have been damaged by side to docking of large commercial vessels. Is there any, I mean, like, that just happens?
My understanding is it's 20 years old, that's normal wear. That's my understanding of it. I can ask if there's some other, you know, like putting fenders or something that might protect it better. Is that what you're suggesting?
I just didn't know,
There, I'm just trying to think over the years, I mean, we had tall ships there, they had some big ships there, but that was always calm. But I've never seen anything out there when we've had some huge storms. So,
I can ask.
yeah, I just don't recall big ships being out there on those.
Yeah.
Now, on the other side in front of the shanty,
Right.
yes. Just- They only use those fingers at the end of those piers when they're out of space.
Right.
Or something that's, catamaran is too big to fit in the slip.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to authorize, a motion to authorize the town manager to request a Virginia Port Authority aid to local ports grant request for an amount of $228,700 for the rehab of our inner harbor bulkhead.
Could I make a suggestion to the maker of the motion? Could you change that to authorize the mayor?
Authorize the mayor, okay?
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just for clarification, I just want to be sure, it says it here, I think, but I just want to be sure. The study was done, the contract for Langley and McDonald was amended to do design and cost estimating for the physical repairs. And this motion, for this money, is to do the actual repairs.
Correct.
All the engineering is done.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we have an unanimous. It's number C, or letter C. Budget amendment request for purchase of utility vehicle and equipment.
So,
C
the-
or D, I'm sorry. I had it
C.
D.
Oh, well, I have it as C.
Well, this staff report says D.
Oh, 7D.
Sorry.
oh, it does. Yeah,
Mine says
it should be C. It's seven.
Okay.
It should be 7C.
Yeah, sorry about that. We switched
sorry.
a few
Oh,
things
you're fine.
around, and I missed that one.
Regarding the specifics of this is something that had been approved previously for Public Works to get a gator, and we simply couldn't get it. We couldn't get it due to supply chain issues, and because of the USDA grant requirements, we just couldn't do it. So we asked you to amend the budget to take it out. We've since found another manufacturer that is actually even slightly less expensive than the Gator, about $500 less. So we would like to ask you to put it back in to the budget. This was originally in the budget. You took it out. We're asking you to please put it back in. I would also like to point out there is a typo in the recommendation section. The item specifics list out all the costs, and you see the total requested is $33,775. That is correct. The motion, the recommendation says $36,775. That is incorrect. It should be $33,775 in the recommendation. I apologize for that typo.
I have one question. Have they checked to see access like a parts and repair for this company that's
Land and codes?
a landing coach? I've never heard of it.
Yeah, they're over there by Costco.
Okay, all right.
They've got a Virginia Beach location as well.
There's my answer.
Norfolk and Virginia Beach, at least.
Okay, good.
Also, this is below the threshold requiring a public hearing.
Right, below the 1%. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend the fiscal year 2023 general capital budget to increase revenue and expenditure line items each for 33,775 to purchase the equipment as outlined in the staff report.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Now we go to D. Town manager contract renewal.
So, Mr. Mayor, my contract was originally for 3 years, began in March 9th of 2020. Time flies, and my contract expires on March 9th of this year. Town Council conducted my evaluation last week, and I received a satisfactory evaluation, and you therefore requested my contract come up for renewal. That contract is before you, and I defer to you for consideration.
Make a motion that we approve the new town manager employment agreement.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. And back again, Mr. Hosey.
Did we get the no-cut clause in there?
A couple of quick things. As you know, we do every year, about this time of year, it's time for Beach Week. We break out the big equipment and we try to rebuild the beach after all the erosion all winter and all season. Beach Week this year will be March 13th to the 18th. So we'll be putting notices out, but please, in case you hear anything or spread the word, that's not the best time to be walking your dog on the beach. So that's when the tides were most favorable for us to do that, and we're trying to get the equipment for that.
Does that mean the beach is closed?
No, no.
Means you could get run over.
Yeah, we discourage use. We put up warning signs. If it gets to the point where we think people are being unsafe, we will close it for part of it. And I think we did do that one year. We did have to close it for a couple hours because people were just being completely irresponsible and walking right in front of the equipment and such. If that happens again, we will, but we'll evaluate that.
Will we do that through Nixle, or how will that be notified? From a guest perspective, we're starting to have guests that time period, so I just want to make sure I'm communicating. Not saying anything should happen differently, just how we find out, like if.
Well, all we did before, we just posted signs on the beach. You know,
Right, but I wouldn't necessarily, as a B&B, I wouldn't necessarily know that. I don't go down to the beach every day.
Mhm.
Not often at all, in fact.
Um,
So like, will there be a Nixle notice for our residents? or-
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
if
That makes sense. You know,
yeah.
we would probably put, well, certainly Facebook. We do Facebook for everything. Nixle, I try to reserve that for really important stuff, but perhaps that would qualify if it's really short term.
Right.
Yeah. I'll double check with Public Works again and see if there's how bad it was. And I mean, if we can predict certain hours, obviously they always do this in the morning.
Sure.
You know, they're not out there
Yeah.
usually the entire day.
I just think the communication is key,
Right.
so that we know and we can communicate to others.
All right, I'll check with Public Works
Like
and
you said, it's mainly going to be the dog.
get back to you on that. Okay. You recall at our work session, we discussed parking as one of our projects, and I briefed to you that we had an ordinance on the books that we feel we are now authorized to enforce. I am moving forward with that, and I laid on the table for your review a public awareness notice that it's my intention to send out with the utility bills next week. We will also run the tags of every trailer that's currently on the street and have specific addresses for them, and we will send them, notices directly about that. The intent here is to ease into this, give them plenty of time, try to find additional places to go. On the notices that we sent to the owners of the trailer, we actually included the names and phone numbers of potential storage places that they could try, you know, to.
Where is that listed?
It's not on here, it's in the letter we sent to the actual owners of the trailers.
That was one of my questions.
Yeah.
Just wondered.
And so, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of this, and that it was gonna be going on. We would look to start enforcing on May 1st, giving people over 2 months to try and figure something else out. And,
Will we be putting this in with the water bill?
yes, that's what I meant. That's what, the water bill's go out next week.
Okay.
So that would go out with that, and we'd also put it on Facebook, we'd put it in the Gazette, you know, and we would try to reach it as far and wide as we can. Anyway, I just wanted to make you aware of that and give you one last opportunity to voice any concern.
Can we get a copy of the letter going to the actual owners, please? Just so we can see what it's.
Sure, it's very similar to that.
Okay.
It's just reworded to be specific to an actual violator, but I'll send you copies of that. The next thing I just wanted to make you aware of is, because I don't know if any of you are getting any questions or complaints, but there is some noise going on the south side of the harbor. It's not coming from Coastal Pre-Class. It's not coming from the yacht center. It's coming from the property in between. There's a loading operation going on where they brought in a bunch of really large riprap boulders off of a barge, and they're sitting on the shore now. Now they're taking these boulders and loading them into dump trucks and taking them away. That's a very loud thing when you drop a boulder into a steel truck, and it's echoing through town and through Bay Creek. So I contacted the owner to find out a little bit more about what's going on. He was very responsive, very cooperative, and to let me know that it's probably another 3 to 4 weeks of this activity before they'll have all those removed. It's not an ongoing operation, and he said he would contact the foreman on the job to try and see if they can't get the boulders lower in the truck before they release them, you know, to help minimize with the noise. So I just want to let everybody know that's what's going on over there. And I appreciate the owners getting back to me and working to try and alleviate some of that noise. The last thing I have is the strategic plan and priorities that we worked on last week at the work session. I provided those to you yesterday. I would request, if you have not already, please review them tomorrow. Our public work session is 2 weeks from tonight, and Monday's a holiday. So if at all possible, I would like to get this out into the public's hands this weekend, so they have full 2 weeks to look at them. So if I don't hear otherwise, I will assume it did reflect what you remember us doing. I've heard back from Vice Mayor Bennett and from Councilwoman Holloway. But if anybody else has any input, please let me know. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any comments from council?
I have one item. County budget preps are ongoing. I had sent you information on their first session relative to revenue. And again, it's to be aware of what is happening at the county level relative to tax rates and assessments. So that was the first meeting on the revenue side. They'll have a work session on the actual budget, bringing the expense and revenue together, February 28th. So we'll hear a little bit more, but we need to stay on top of where they're going relative to revised assessments and tax rates. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I have one question. It's actually for Julie. Cape Charles Day, just how are we going to communicate more clearly of the team, and how we're going to do our team signups like we did last year? I thought it worked well for council to kind of come up with an area that they wanted to work with. But I think that we just want to be, you know, we got a lot done, but I don't know that every group knew that they could start, you know.
So I'll answer that one because I kind of jumped in. Last year, the mayor kind of organized or tried to organize these teams, and it didn't go as planned. Some places, some had more than others. So what I suggested was that that everybody just meet at the beach gazebo, and then we see how many people show up, and then you can divvy up those people, and you go do whatever it is you need to do.
We'll be at the party getting Paul.
So we'll have trash bags, we'll have the pruning gear again, and then, council members and mayor who show up, you can divvy up your teams right then and decide what you're going to do and go off and do it. That seemed to be the easiest way to do it, since no one else was organizing anything. So the timing for that for the public is from 10 to 12. So if everybody were to meet at the beachfront at 10 o'clock, and we'll provide the tools and supplies needed. You can go out and either pick up litter, you can go prune back crepe myrtles in the medians, whatever it is that your group wants to do. Any council members who are there, again, I encourage you again to pick your team, and you can lead that team to go.
Will you have sections, though? I think, because in the past, what was so disorganized, which is why we came up with last year's approach, is that people didn't really know there wasn't leadership on where to go and what needed to be worked on. So, people didn't know. I think the pulling together of a team, it can happen at the beachfront, but I think you can, if you wanted to work on Peach Street, if you want to work on the park, if you want to work on the beach, there needs to be some level of where people go to, because in the past, it's failed, I'll be honest. Last year was the most success we've had as far as really getting something done, because people didn't know what to do. They didn't know what are the choices? Like, we stood, you stand there and you get a trash bag, well then, unless there's someone taking a leadership for an area, I think we'll have what we had a couple of years ago, which wasn't very good.
Could
Well,
public,
we just have defined areas, so,
Right.
I guess maybe it would be helpful if we had, here are all the areas
Right.
that are available,
Right.
and then you pick which area you want to go to, and you go. So we can do that. We could certainly break up the town into those groups,
Yeah.
and then whoever shows up can pick whichever section you want, and off you go. So
We
can
just need to
we
make
can do
sure
that.
something needs to be done in each one of those sections and not just have random sections everywhere where they're going to and nothing needs to be done.
well, and it might be that one section needs 2 or 3 teams of people. Maybe Public Works could come up with a list of, here are some things that doesn't require a great deal of skill, but if we had another 20 people working on this, it would be helpful to them.
Because people felt a purpose last year, like they could get something accomplished. And I think that's what we were looking for, is something to focus on. I mean, in the past, people just wandered around and like the town staff keeps it so clean, we're like trying to search for trash, so we just started pruning things. And that's how last year's kind of started, So I just think people were invigorated by being able to really make a difference in a specific area that needed it.
Okay, I'll try to have some sort of options and areas available for you to choose from that morning.
Great. Anybody else? All right. Some announcements. February 20th, town offices will be closed for President's Day. March 2nd, town council public input session and special meeting, which Mr. Hosey spoke about. March 4th is Cape Charles Day, and we'll get more out on that and get those sections rolling, so we can get around there and do that. And then March 16th, town council regular meeting. And can I get a motion for? So moved.
Second?
Oh, sorry. All in favor? All opposed? I didn't think we voted.